Welcome back to the KTP podcast, the show where we explore careers, insights, and everything in between. Each episode, we tackle a new topic to help you grow, learn, and stay ahead of your professional journey. Let's jump right into it.
So hi everyone, for today's episode on KTP, we have Hima, who is consulting currently at Deloitte, and we just have him to give a little quick introduction before we get kind of started with the session for today.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, like you said, I went to UBC, graduated in 2022. Been working now for slightly less than 2 years at Deloitte as a consultant. I did the Bucks program as well, similar to you both. It was a great time, lots of ups and downs, as you would know. But generally speaking, it's always nice to be in touch, and also to look back once in a while, to have an excuse to just talk about yourself. Can never hurt. With that being said, yeah, I'm excited to see what we talk about, and hopefully to those listening, it's helpful.
Yeah, thanks again for your time, Hima. Bucks was such a grind of a program. Why did you decide to study Bucks in the first place?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I went through high school, and that was the first time in my life I did CS, like, seriously. So I mean, we have like computer classes as kids, and none of that stuff really introduced me to anything programming or like the technical side of computer science related. But I did the IB diploma program, and we had to take a science. And at that point, I knew I hated all the other sciences, but I didn't hate computer science. So that's why I ended up taking it then. But I wouldn't say I loved it, but I did kind of find it interesting. I enjoyed it, at least the part where you try to put things together, and all the very technical, like the data structure stuff, was never fun. But it was kind of cool that you could just write code, and it would be something that you could see tangibly in the real world, and you could break it, fix it as many times as you wanted. And we had to do like a small project that I tried doing at the time as a part of the program, and I did enjoy it. Not to say that I did very well in it, but I did enjoy it. And I was like, this is something that I think I would want to get good at, or at least know how this stuff works, because ultimately I felt like, and I still feel like, there would be a time and place where I'd want to start my own company, and it would be probably something tech related. And it always helps to understand how this stuff works and have the confidence in yourself that you can build it. But all that to say, I got through high school, was applying for a bunch of unis, and I've applied around the world, but not many places offered a dual degree, because I also did like econ and business at the time, and I didn't want to let that go. I never really saw myself as a true comp sci guy, or neither as saw myself as a pure business grad. Um, and then I heard about UBC, and then I heard about this program. So it was UBC Bucks versus going to another university, just doing business or doing computer science, and doing like a minor in the other thing that I wasn't taking. But I thought it's better if there's a program already set up for you. You have to go through less hurdles. At the same time, Vancouver's great, good weather, blah, blah, blah. So that's how I ended up taking Bucks at UBC. And I guess at some point in your Bucks career, you do have to ask yourself if you want to stay or you're going to leave, because there's people, as you would know, that I know, that rightly so decided that it wasn't for them. I think why I ended up staying was the same thing. It was challenging. It was difficult. The workload wasn't the easiest, quite a few times, but ultimately I felt like there was a lot of value in what I was learning. And it was always good to balance that by going to your business classes and doing things that are slightly different, and force you to think about things differently. So that was why I ended up doing Bucks and staying in it. I have no regrets. I actually really liked it and enjoyed the fact that I did it. There's a lot to gain from doing that program, and yeah, it's been the same for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Hima. But just on that notion, kind of studying what you have, in the last 5 years, and then kind of graduating and working 2 years now. What internships kind of did you do, if any? What was your career path kind of look like where you're at right now, and how do you think Bucks kind of maybe tied into that, the big picture?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'll answer the first part because it's a lot easier on how my internships ended up working out. So I did, like everybody else who went to Sauder, went through the co-op program. I got rejected from it when I first applied in my second year. It was a pretty big blow at the time, because I liked school, but I really just wanted to go work. I was like, it's great. You get to spend 4 months pretending that you have a job at a company, you get paid, you pad your resume, and then if you like it or you don't, you're out of there in 4 months, and then you can do that again. But ended up getting into the co-op program much later. I actually did. COVID summer was when the first time I was truly available to do co-ops. The market was a shit show at the time. I ended up working for free at a startup for like a couple months. Then sort of had this grant program thing where you could get paid by the government. So I did that. It wasn't in terms of what I wanted to do, it wasn't anywhere close. I was doing sales and like I was helping them sell a whole bunch of like software stuff to small businesses. They were essentially building custom software for small businesses, and then they pivoted later to do food delivery. And then I had to help doing like market research for them for that. It was a good experience because it was just me and the founder did a whole bunch of things that I would have would have been difficult to do at any other place. But then my internships really just they got unlocked for me when I did a hackathon, and I think you guys did it as well. We did the Scotiabank hackathon. Really opened so many doors for us because it got me and my buddies our first big internship. We did it at Scotiabank. I did analytics for this small little team. I mean, it's not a small little team really, but it was like one part of the bank. From there, I went to Lululemon to do a strategy internship, just more for them to think about how they deal with like the hardware stuff they buy, and then also thinking about what they would do with data in the future. And then I ended up stumbling across an internship at Deloitte because I did a conference. They extend interviews if you attend the conference. And then at that point, I remember not being that keen on consulting. I actually thought I wouldn't enjoy it, but I told myself this is my last internship. If I hate it, I don't ever have to come back, and it stays on my resume. But if I like it, can't hurt. So I ended up taking the internship. I did it. I really enjoyed what I did over the 4 months. But what I enjoyed more was it sounds cliche, but the culture in terms of like you go out and find your own projects, you network to get across the things that you want to do. And you can really, in some sense, control what you work on by just networking heavily, knowing the right people, and obviously being good at what you do and contributing positively. So all that to say, I was like, this is where I want to end up. And then I ended up taking the return offer to come back. But yeah, my internships were definitely they were up and down. I don't miss the part where I had to apply to a bunch of places, get rejected like in 30 seconds, and then apply again and do interviews. But it was I honestly would I think in terms of time spent and the return I got, both in terms of um experience, perspective on what I wanted to do, money as well. I think it was the greatest ROI I've ever had by doing those 12 months or 16 months of internships. I think I gained so much more being so young, not knowing what I wanted to do and what I liked. But yeah, and then how Bucks help with that? I think the short answer is that you can apply to anything and everything under the sun, mostly, because you can apply to more technical ones, you can apply to more hybrid or business ones, and it always helps. I think as superficial as that sounds, employers do love it when they see that, oh, you did business and CS, so you're great. And then they at least are willing to talk to you or give you another shot. But in a more practical sense, when you do deal with the technical part of internships, even if it's just like dealing with Excel or like writing some very simple SQL, going through bugs makes you more confident in dealing with that level of like technical information.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you've been through vast majority of experiences from like working for free at a startup to now at like one of the biggest consulting firms in the world. So what do you think are some important skills someone should have if they want to pursue a career in tech consulting or any of the other positions that you've been in before?
Yeah, I guess the core skills never change regardless of what you end up doing, at least in terms of like if you're not about to go out there and start your own company. I think for most jobs, the core skills is always to be open to networking, and then not networking in the sense that you message 100 people on LinkedIn and talk to 5 of them and hope they give you jobs, but finding what's most comfortable for you in terms of networking. So for me, I was okay with messaging people on LinkedIn, being rejected a million times by just like emailing them or texting them. But for others, there's other ways. You go to hackathons and you go meet mentors there, or you go to some other very niche event and then hope to meet people there. But one way or another, put yourself out there. I think what a lot of people are doing now is building in public, which is great. So you'll see people on Twitter like talking about what the stuff they're working on, and all that to say that find a way to network, find a way to put yourself out there in terms of what you're working on and what you like, and that'll naturally attract the level of interest you want from the people that you want to talk to. Outside of that, I'd say the skill that is very useful now in consulting, but honestly helped me a ton, was just being open to anything. Especially when I was doing co-ops, I was like, I'm going to try a whole bunch of stuff. I definitely wasn't in the mindset of specializing, which would have also been great. To spend 16 months doing one thing sets you up for success for later on. But I was just open to trying new things. And that's why my co-ops all ended up being across the board. It gave me the satisfaction that, okay, I've tried this stuff. I kind of see what life would be like if I did this or in a company like this. Is it for me? Is it not for me? Tick that box and then move on. And now when I'm in consulting, it's very similar because we don't have direct managers who tell us where to be at any given point of day. You're going from here to here. there's a big part of it is you going and finding your own projects. So being open to stuff, one, lets you, when you're early into a company, get in touch with people and do a whole bunch of stuff. And even if you only like it so much, they see that, oh, this guy's good, he's hardworking, et cetera, and then it sets you up. And then outside of that, if you're open to stuff, you'll naturally engage with more things and you'll have a better perspective on what you want to do. So I'd say I'd actually boil it down to those two. I forgot what the first one was, but the second one was being just open to as many opportunities as you can. And then the first one is find a way that works for you and just use that to network, put yourself out there, because it would be I wouldn't say impossible, but it'd be extremely hard to kind of go out and try the things you want otherwise.
No, for sure. On that note, I'm just kind of curious, how do you see your role, your position kind of evolving in the next few years to come? And then also on that, like, do you see yourself being with Deloitte for, I guess, the foreseeable future too?
Yeah, and that's a very interesting question. And I would be lying if I said I don't think about it often. In terms of where this position is going over the next few years, I think the part of consulting that I work in, we basically we call ourselves system integrators. So we go in and we help clients implement certain systems, and sometimes that system already exists, and sometimes we build it and implement it. I see a lot of value add in that skill, and maybe my perspective is biased for obvious reasons, but building software, implementing it, and getting people to use it is very, very difficult. And there's tons of companies out there who don't do that for a living. So my current company is in a completely different industry. It's an engineering heavy industry where they build stuff, but nothing related to computers or software. And for them, it isn't really worth their time or their expertise to figure out how to build software and implement it. So that's where they bring in consulting companies or system integrators like Deloitte, or there's your Accentures, your KPMG, EY, because we've been there, done that, and they only need to pay us for the time we do the job, and then they would never have to see our faces again. So that's why I see value, and I see this role will probably evolve. I don't know exactly how. Maybe there'll be pressure from the market to evolve a business model, or maybe something will happen. But I do see value in it. I just don't know how we'll deliver that value over the next few years. Um, if I was a betting man, I'd say that there's definitely more competition in the market now. Like you don't have to go to like a big company to do implementations. There's a lot of small, very focused companies that also do a good job. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what kind of clients would be willing to pay for what. To answer your second question on do I see myself here? I do see myself here in the foreseeable future. And the short reason for that would be I've been grading every work experience I've had in terms of how much am I learning and how quickly am I learning it? And then also from does this fulfill me? Like there's also other factors like am I making enough money to survive and be happy? Do I feel good about how much money I earn? And also like, do I feel good about where I work? That type of thing. But the rate of learning is very high and it's quick as well. So like you get thrown into stuff where you have to learn things quickly and you're also trying a lot of new things. So you generally feel like you're exposed to a lot of things. On the other hand, I do find it fulfilling because one, especially in the field that I'm in, it's a very tangible thing. Like you've either implemented it or you haven't. Like your shit either breaks in prod or it doesn't, right? So you're there at the end of the day when things go live and you know you've done something. And on the other hand, it feels very real because it's something you know it's very hard to do for clients at least. I'm not saying it's an impossible job, but they don't like doing this or they're not good at doing this and we are. So it feels good. And more selfishly, from a personal perspective, if I wanted to start a company tomorrow, it's giving me confidence in the fact that I can execute stuff. I can take stuff from 0 to 1. And the onus is on me to figure out what that is. But having confidence in the fact that if I have money and if I have the right people, I can go and execute something. That's big. I think that level of confidence really opens up the world for you too. So yeah, I do see myself being here. And I think if I do leave, it would probably be for an opportunity that either lets me do the same thing in a better environment or I finally figure out what I want to do in terms of starting my own business and then I go all in.
That's a lot of great insights. I was just wondering, like a lot of people when they think of consulting, it's like a really cushy job with a lot of buzzwords. Like what are some like common misconceptions about like your role, your industry, like kind of how to land a position?
It is definitely a lot of buzzwords. I won't lie on a daily basis as well. But generally speaking, I definitely get questions once in a while on like why did the clients pay you to do that? Like can't they do it themselves? And I wonder about that question myself a lot, especially when I joined. I was like, well, I see what we're doing. It's a tough job, but it's not impossible. And there's millions of people capable of doing this. Why not? Why don't they try doing this themselves? And the one of the few answers that I've landed on, and maybe I'll change my answer as I spend more time here, is there's an opportunity cost and there's an actual cost of trying to do something. The actual cost is a lot easier. So like if I wanted to go build a new system and I decide I need to pay Pawan and Tej to develop it and roll it out for me, I need to pay you guys dev salaries in today's market. I need to pay benefits, overhead, a whole bunch of stuff. So it's actually very expensive to hire even one person. And then you also are at the risk of like, I can't just fire you guys when stuff is done. You guys are full-time employees. Like there's a whole bunch of stipulations that come with it. So when I get a contractor or a consulting company or an agency, I pay them exactly for the job that I need them to do. And I have no reason to keep you any longer than that. So there's some level of security with like, one, because I'm paying you money, I can truly act like a customer and make sure you deliver stuff in the right quality, make sure that you actually deliver it. And then once it's done, thanks, great working with you. Goodbye. We'll see each other next time. So there's a lot of less stipulations that come with doing that. The opportunity cost pieces, I find it very interesting. And we just chatted about this. So my current company builds ships. They win contracts and they build ships. They make their money by building good ships. They don't really make their money by implementing software. So if they decided to take their people and dedicate their hours towards building software, it's not really worth their time. They would much rather have these people spend a majority of their time figuring out how to build this next ship that we're going to build and build it in the right way so that it's the most profitable and it's also the best ship on planet Earth. So for them, the opportunity cost of getting them to do what we're doing is higher because you're not making the most of the talent that you have. And at the same time, all the hours they spend doing what we're doing, assuming they hit the same level of quality as someone who's been doing this time and time again, is they won't be doing what you need them to do, right? So you don't want your A-star players on the bench. You want them on the field. You want them minutes in their game to go towards what they do best. So I would say that's one. I don't know if that's a misconception, but if you ever wonder why people pay for consultants, it's usually somewhere along those lines. The opportunity cost of something, and then also the true cost of hiring someone to do that job for you. There's probably a million other reasons, but that may be above my pay grade, or it might just be something I don't know.
With the nature of your position, right? What do you think are some of the biggest challenges you face? Could be could be client facing, could be just the nature of the industry, could be just the location you're working in, the team. Just curious, what do you think has been the biggest roadblock that you've had to overcome so far?
A good question. I guess it's consulting is generally a very team-based environment. Like you're rarely working alone. So one of the biggest challenges or the thing that you have to be very good at is knowing how to work with people and getting things done and being very good at judging what someone is good at and what they're not good at. And based on that, what do I need to be doing? That type of thing. So you need a lot of acumen in being like, all right, I'm working with H. He's great at this. He can do this. He can do that. He's very technically strong. But when I need to go and do this, I know he's not going to do that because that's just not his skill set, or he's not very good at doing that, whatever. So you get very good at understanding who you're working with and figuring out how to make that work. And that can be a challenge, especially when you just join. You have less influence over I can't just go to somebody and be like, you need to do this shit like today, right? There's ways around it. So the challenge is always getting good at the people piece of like, how do you work with the team and how do you make sure you get your shit done and also that everybody else gets their stuff done? And that problem only gets, I wouldn't say worse, but it only becomes more convoluted as you grow within any company because you go from being an individual contributor to being a manager or like a people manager of some sort. The other I'd say is the the pace at which you'd have to learn enough about something. I know I said that that was one of the benefits, and it is, but it doesn't make it any easier. So now that I'm supporting a new client who builds ships, I can't also pretend like I don't need to know how anything works. I do need to understand how they do their job at least. I don't need to understand which part of the ship goes where and how they make it, but I do need to understand the general process of building ships. And that can be a challenge depending on how specific an industry is or how specific a certain job is. And you kind of have to keep yourself honest at any given point and be like, do I really understand how that works? Or am I just assuming that I know how it works and just trying to do my job besides it? And you get found out very soon. So if you try to kind of waffle your way out of a lot of these conversations, it will come back to bite you. And no one expects you to be an expert in that field, but you need to know enough before you go do anything. And that can be a challenge based on, again, how easy is it for you to get information, get access to that information? How accessible is it? If someone started telling me this is how we build metal alloys or something, like it's completely out of the realm of my understanding. But I can just still understand how they build stuff. So I'd say that's another challenge. And I don't see that challenge really going away. I guess with the new like LLMs and the new AI tools, information is a lot more parsable. Like you can get information in the way you want it, which is always a benefit. But um, getting a decent understanding of things in a short amount of time and also figuring out how to get your best work done in a team-based environment, I would say is probably the biggest challenge. But I can't imagine that challenge not being there anywhere else you go. It just affects you in different degrees based on the job.
So, as you're going through your professional journey, kind of learning different tools and different industry practices, what do you think is the most valuable lesson you've learned so far? And like, if you were to, kind of restart your career from scratch, how would you do it?
Yeah, I think my lesson hasn't, I wouldn't say it hasn't changed much, but this one has always stood out to me since the time I applied for co-ops. I didn't get it, and then I had to apply again, and all that stuff is, I think generally speaking, your career, from what I've learned, is, or I wouldn't say success, but the ability to accomplish things is, I think, directly related to how often you're willing to shoot your shot without taking things too personally and giving up. So it's not to say that our rejections, like, it's not a big deal, pick yourself up tomorrow. It absolutely sucks. And there's days even now when if things don't go well, it's so demotivating. And you almost feel like I just want to switch. Like I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. And I think ultimately you will see outcomes that you want the longer you're able to just stay in the game. It's quite literally time in game. Like how long are you like willing to stay there, not take things personally, but at the same time be like, that didn't work for whatever reason. Maybe it's my fault, maybe it's somebody else's fault for whatever reason. Like I need to be here and do it. I need to get through it. So I would say my biggest lesson is like shoot your shot. Don't be afraid. There is never enough to lose by just asking. There's always more to gain. So be willing to try new things, shoot your shot, and you will inevitably fail. You'll fail more times than you succeed. And it's helpful to remind yourself that the more you do that, your chances of succeeding at something or stumbling across something will be way higher than if you just decided that something wasn't for you and moved on.
No, definitely being involved in work, in different directions is very important. But now outside of that as well, what do you kind of do to just unwind, kick back once in a while? I'm just curious because you're, living in Vancouver as well, how is that different from maybe what you did, kind of growing up? Has it changed a lot? Is it still the same?
Well, I wished I was a nature person because I would be obsessed with living in Vancouver, but I'm not really go on hikes every weekend type of guy. I did used to play a lot of sports. I did my ACL last year, so I haven't played in like a while, but that was my kind of release. I used to play once a week and it feels amazing. I played a lot of soccer, so it used to feel great. And I'm hoping to take that back up sometime in it this year. And outside of that, generally, I love watching sports as well. So like that's what I do on the weekends. The usual stuff. You do your fantasy stuff. You go watch the game, and then you go watch highlights of the game, and then you go watch an analysis of the game. So that's pretty much what my weekend looks like. But I do love coffee and cafes, and I also just generally like not doing anything if I get a moment. So if I can get time on the weekend or even on a weekday where it's like I don't have to do anything, I will take that time and just like relax. But from a more curiosity perspective, I like to think that I like history. I do. So like I'll try to like watch something, not a big reader. So I'll try to watch something that I find interesting about history or about something that I'm interested in, read what's going on in the startup world, which is it's always very exciting. If you're on Twitter, you can always take a look at what YC is up to or what somebody else is up to, and you can read. So that's what I do. It's a whole bunch of things that basically make me feel like I'm going somewhere in life. Most of that is just and the more diverse they are, the more I enjoy them. I actually really like it when one thing has nothing to do with the other. Just because that separation helps. And then you also feel like there's more to life than just one thing that you like, right? There's more to life than sports. There's more to life than your career. And there's more to life than just fucking around. So yeah, that's is what I'd say I do in my free time.
Yeah, if you were to look back at you're reaching Vancouver for the first time, you're 18 years old, starting university. If you were to give
Mhm.
like one piece of advice to your first year self, what do you think it would be?
One piece of advice that I would give myself. That's a tough one. I would say that it would be somewhat related to what I said about shooting your shot, but I think I would tell myself that you do need to shoot your shot. You do need to try a lot of things, but there is a lot of value in pulling through with the things that you've committed to. So I think especially when I was in uni, I would have lots of these things that I want to do, and I'd do them for a while, and then I'd be like, ah, whatever, like it's not fun anymore, and moved on. But there's a lot of value in actually pulling through with things and completing them. You learn so much more by getting to the finish line, even if it's not where you anticipated it to be. And I think that's just on top of mind because even today, and again, going back, I'm a very mediocre programmer, but I can build stuff. I can do stuff. And one thing I have to keep reminding myself and try to build that muscle is that if you think of something you want to do, you need to take it to the finish line one way or another. And I'd say and I think that applies to school as well. There were definitely semesters and courses where I'm like, I really could not care less about what I'm doing right now, and I don't want to do this. But ultimately, you've it's a privilege to have access to be able to try things, including education, and not to feel guilty about everything you get in life, but generally the advice I'd give myself, at least as an 18-year-old going to uni at the time, would be try a whole bunch of stuff, but you're not really learning anything or gaining anything until you take a small subset of it and actually pull through. Whatever that may be. That may be something with your personal life. That may just be, hey, I really want to work out and get super fit. Or it could be something career related. Just try to pull through with at least one or two things, and I think it does wonders for you. You learn a lot, and it also gives you a lot of confidence, which is important. Something you do need for yourself later on.
Yeah, I remember I actually had you as an orientation leader when I was in first year. I believe you were in like second or third year. And like I remember you telling me a similar piece of advice. I feel like I understand the importance of that more now that I'm done with school. Thankfully, I feel pretty fulfilled with my experience as well and did a lot of things. But at the end of the day, if I didn't know any better, then I think like I would have been, yeah, wouldn't have had as much of a direction.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, that pretty much wraps up all the questions we have for you. Thank you so much again for your time, Hima.
Thank you.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening to our episode, and we'll catch you at the next one.